Welcome to Wednesday Night Slides number 66. Got a lot of stuff planned for you. It's going to be a variety. I did some non-train stuff. Let me get the screen share going and we shall get underway. If I can find the right screen. There we go. You all should be seeing the title slide.
Indeed.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Good.
We're going to start
You're
off.
Marion.
We're going to start off by heading down the Jersey Shore. Went down to Wildwood right after the last show, and went down the daytime. I usually go down at night for the neon. Went down a little bit earlier because I wanted to get some shots of the tram cars. These are real throwbacks to the 1960s when Wildwood was the vacation capital. It's a tram car store there now, and you can buy all kinds of little souvenirs. But here's one of the tram cars on the boardwalk, and they just putter along, and people get out of the way when they hear the watch the tram car, please warning. Maurice has two piers with rides on it. This is the northernmost of the two, which I hadn't been up to before for photography, but did a few shots there. It's got King Kong wearing a Wildwood tank top. And if you look carefully, King Kong is holding a tram car and hugging the lighthouse. Another tram car going by the Seaport Pier. A ride that I would not go on myself, much as I love roller coasters. This would be a little too much for me. And this is like the gateway to the southern of the two Maurice piers. Up from the parking lot. Hot day. It was about 90 degrees, even down the shore. It was 90 degrees, which is hot for down there, and very humid. So when I wanted to take a break, I would just find a bench to sit on along the boardwalk. And for shots like this, what I would do is I would just rest my camera on my knee, flip the live screen up, so I could just look down and see what my camera was seeing. Then set a real low shutter speed and just do some street scene stuff of the people on the boardwalk, the tram cars going by. And then as it got darker, I started looking for some neon on the boardwalk, including Moron Madness. And they say live targets, they mean live targets. Some guy in a monster outfit comes marching towards you as you shoot paintball guns at him. Mini golf course. And French fries. This seagull thinks he's hit the jackpot. He's got the largest French fries in Wildwood.
It figures a seagull would hang out there.
Absolutely. Oh, by the way, I do. If you want to say anything, comment, question, whatever, feel free to jump in. Hit your space bar on your computer, hold it down. That unmutes you temporarily, and just chime on in. No problem. Then once it got dusk, I headed out to the motels. Wildwood is full of 1960s motels when getting away in your Chevrolet was the way to go. And all the motels, well, the ones that still survive, 90% are gone. There's still a lot there, but they all had space age names. The Satellite, here's the Astronaut. Because it was a hot night and I was getting kind of worn out already. But I had not seen the Astronaut sign look this good before, so I shot that. Same with the Sand Dune Motel. I hadn't seen this sign fully lit before, so I got that. Still lots and lots of neon in Wildwood, and there's a couple of neon repair places right in the town. So all these signs have easy access when they need maintenance. The Imperial 500 I have seen fully lit before, but I shot it anyhow this time because it's an impressive neon sign. A lot of elements to it, and it's almost always fully lit. They really take good care of the sign. some of the signs that I saw on this evening weren't any worse or any better than what I had seen in previous years. So I didn't really shoot them, like I said, because it was a hot night. Then went back up to the boardwalks. I hadn't shot a lot of the neon on the boardwalk at the north end of Wildwood. Back up to the North Maurice Pier.
Were you riding the tram back and forth there, Steve, or were you actually hoofing it?
I actually drove the car. It's about 1.5 miles, I think, between the two piers.
Oh, okay.
So I just drove. The trams were running pretty crowded. I had not seen the boardwalk this crowded before on a weeknight. It was packed. Gateway Casino, which is not a gambling casino, it's the arcade. And then I decided to do some night shots of the tram cars. I do want to get back down to Wildwood one more time this year, which means I got to do it next week because after Labor Day, which hard to believe it's on top of this already. After Labor Day, a lot of the neon goes out. So I want to get down there one more time, which will probably wind up being maybe next Wednesday night. Changing gears. I headed out to Summer Rail out in Marion, Ohio, the big railroad slideshow out there. And I went out with George Fletcher, used to be an associate editor, worked for Railfan back around 2000. I met George at the Wilmington Amtrak station, which also serves, SEPTA also stops there. So I got there a little early and got a few trains. Here's a northbound or eastbound Amtrak train, regional train. And then George came in on this Acela. So we packed up and headed west. Our first stop was actually out in Cove, Pennsylvania, up near just beyond Harrisburg. And we stopped there to get the Pennsylvanian, which I don't have a photo of due to, well, I kind of blame it on the camera, but it's actually operator error. I forgot to charge my batteries and the battery died as a train was coming. However, I found an outlet in Crescent, Pennsylvania, top of the close to the top of the hill, west of Altoona, where the old Pennsylvania Railroad main line goes up over the Alleghenies. I found an outlet there, plugged in the battery, got a little bit of charge in it, and we got this westbound train coming out of the Gallitzin Tunnel in Gallitzin. Then the fog rolled in, another westbound coming out of the tunnel. And then the Pennsylvanian, which George had shot, but I had not shot a few hours earlier back at Cove. We got that. And then we went to get dinner, and on the way to dinner, we went past some cool neon. Dairy Queen is trying to phase all this out. They really want their stores to go with a more modern DQ image, like you see on the trash can in the back there. So they're really trying to crack down on these stores that still have neon. I don't know why, because neon is so cool. But DQ no longer wants to be Dairy Queen. The next day we were in Butler, Pennsylvania, trying to find the Armco Steel rail operation. We found them. And they had an engine parked behind a tree that we could see from the Dunkin' Donuts parking lot. And it looked like it was going to move any minute, but never moved. So we poked around Butler and found this restored Milwaukee road covered hopper. Apparently, Pullman Standard was located in Butler, and this is a car that was built right there in town. The whole Pullman Standard plant is most of it is gone now. It's now largely an office park, although what appears to be the headquarters building, which I did not shoot, I should have. Headquarters building appears to be going under some renovations. From Butler, we headed up to Newcastle, Pennsylvania, looking for the Newcastle Industrial. Had a bit better luck there. They were running. Didn't go very far, but you're able to get a couple of shots of them working in Newcastle. And then to Marion for Friday afternoon for summer rail. Marion Union Station sits with three tracks or tracks on three sides of it. Here we see a CSX train on the former Erie going across the former Big Four. And then just to the left on the other end of the station, the Chesapeake and Ohio crossed. Norfolk Southern keeps a locomotive for local service tied down on the interchange track quite a bit of the time. This is a local train on CSX, and it had a caboose in the back end. You can see restored AC tower in the shot here, and then the station itself is just to the left of that. This is from the tower steps, a northbound train on the Big Four. And then a westbound on the former Erie. Here we see four Canadians watching trains on Friday night. Brad Jolliffe, Dave Stowe, Paul Cordingley, and Mr. Bradley, Steve Bradley, all watching the action at Marion. Crowd stayed here well into the night, and they did so again on Saturday night. Next day was summer rail. Here we see the presenters lined up in front of the Palace Theater. And then, as is tradition, after we do the official presenters photo, everybody has to reach in and rub Dave Worsey's head for good luck. He's the producer of summer rail. After summer rail, I didn't shoot anything on Saturday night. I just sat around and talked to friends and under AC tower. So on Sunday morning, George and I headed out from Marion, and we first grade crossing out of town heading east. We crossed the tracks, and sure enough, here comes an eastbound on the Erie. So we stopped and shot it. And then the road kind of meanders from here, but it crosses the tracks again at Galleon. And as we crossed the tracks here, I looked down the tracks and the train was right there, same train. Unfortunately, it was like so close I couldn't spin around and get back to the sunny side of the train. So I kind of settled for this shot here. Our destination, get to that in a second. Also found this in Kittanning, Pennsylvania, a muffler man. For those who aren't familiar with them, muffler men are these giant fiberglass statues that were outside muffler shops, and the hands of the statue is positioned to hold a muffler. They became so popular that they were offered with different options. Here you see this muffler man with the optional cowboy head. There's also a monster head and a couple other options you could get. And instead of a muffler, he's holding I believe that's going to be a hamburger. Our destination was back to the Pennsy, back west of Altoona. Here we are in Crescent as an eastbound train goes through. Second unit is one of Norfolk Southern's DC to AC conversion engines with the blue main. There are actually two tunnels in Gallitzin. The tunnel that's at the park where everybody photographs. And then this tunnel about 3 or 4 blocks south. The tunnel is actually behind the brush here. And it's only used for eastbound trains because it is a steep drop down in Altoona using this track here. What you're looking at here is a set of helpers trailing an eastbound train. Back at the park, the tunnel everybody photographs, we get a westbound train coming out. A little better weather than we had on Thursday. Another westbound. And that is the helper set of a westbound going away from the same spot just across the street on the auto overpass that goes over the tunnels here. We stayed at the Tunnel Inn. That's the building in the background here. It's a bed and breakfast. And we stayed in the room that has the middle window on the second floor. Notice the second floor deck. That's a great place to watch trains. You can also shoot ground level in Gallitzin. Westbound train coming out of the tunnel. And a helper set going away, same spot. And the Pennsylvanian coming out of the tunnel. And there you see the overhead bridge. It has chain link fencing on it, but there are places in the fence where there are great big gaps for photography. Nighttime. We're at the Tunnel Inn now from the second floor deck as a eastbound train comes up. The Tunnel Inn has a set of floodlights. If you're sitting on the second floor deck, there's a switch right next to you that controls the floodlights. You hear a train coming, flip it on, 5 floodlights light up, and you can watch the trains as they go by all night long. After the train clears, you turn the lights off to save electricity. If the lights were bright enough, I was able to get a couple of photos off using them.
Did Bob show his layout to you?
No, Bob actually had a very, very, very frequent guest staying there in addition to us. And he spent most of his time with them. So we only talked to him over when we first got there, then again over breakfast the next morning. Next morning, I drove George into Altoona. He was going to catch the Pennsylvanian home. As we were in the very sketchy parking garage in Altoona, a special train went by. So much to George's credit, he said, "Go, chase that train." So I left him in the sketchy parking garage in Altoona, raced back up the hill to Crescent. First train I got in Crescent was this westbound coal train. But the train I was after was the business train. I just got a glimpse of it back in Altoona, but leading it was Norfolk Southern's employee appreciation locomotive, moving the weight of the world. And behind it is the Reading Heritage Unit. So that was a good catch. And I guess George got out of the parking deck in one piece. From there, I started heading home, went through Hollidaysburg and caught up with a Norfolk Southern train, switching the interchange for the Everett Railroad. And then I started looking for places to stop and just wait for trains to come to me. And I wanted to do it all west of Huntington, because I never get that out that way as often as I do east of Huntington. The first place I tried, it wasn't a good place to really just sit and wait for trains. Second place I tried up by just west of the tunnels there, not the Allegheny tunnels, but the other tunnels out there. There were Norfolk Southern maintenance people there. So I wound up going back east of Huntington to one of my usual spots at Mattawanna and waited there. And this westbound train came through. Got a good wave from the conductor. And then behind it was this merchandise train. And then from there, I went to Port Royal. The highway bridge over the tracks here was just replaced. There was a concrete bridge there that was falling apart that dated back to the 1900 something. And it was just replaced. This is my first shot of a train coming under the new bridge at Port Royal. And then I got this westbound, also at Port Royal, and that pretty much ended my summer rail trip. So on to something completely different. I'm going to go back to the archive here, and we're going to head out for some trips out to the Lake Superior Railroad Museum in Duluth. They got a really nice collection there, and they operate the North Shore Scenic Railroad. But my first visit out there was for a special event put together by Steve Leshinsky. And he arranged, and the museum arranged, to have some of their equipment taken from Duluth over into Superior, Wisconsin, at the old Sioux Line station, which still had its and still has its neon. So we got some Sioux Line power parked by the neon sign there. Because this was done in the Lumadine days, we had to throw flash one at a time and paint the scene. I was doing that. We couldn't leave the Sioux Line neon lit the entire shot, so just blow the shot out. Jeff Terry, who used to write the Lineside Legacy column in Rail Fan, his wife got got volunteered to go down into the basement of the station, amongst apparently a lot of spider webs and stuff. And it was her job to flip the sign light, the lights on and off during the shots. So here we see a Sioux Line GP30 and a caboose. The prime attraction that weekend was a trip on the North Shore Scenic, using the museum's ex-Great Northern NW5 rare EMD locomotive. The North Shore Scenic runs over, excuse me, a former Duluth, Mesabi, and Iron Range line between Duluth and Two Harbors, Minnesota. So we had a little mixed train together, and off we went, coming out of downtown Duluth. The trip was designed for photography, so a lot of good photo stops. Near Palmer's, there are two bridges. This is the smaller of the two. And as you continue north towards Two Harbors, this antique car was brought in for some shots. And here's the larger of the two bridges over the Little Sucker Creek. Got to Duluth, and the regular train, the museum's regular train on the North Shore Scenic, was there, powered by the Sioux Line Jeep 30. So we got shots of the trains together at the Two Harbors Depot. Then our train passing the Mesabi Yellowstone on display in Two Harbors. To turn the train around, we had to actually go into the Mesabi Yard in Two Harbors to use the, I can't remember, it was a wire or balloon track there. That's where we turned around. Here's our conductor waiting for a signal to back into the yard, turn the train. And coming out of the yard, Knife River, the station is still there. The sign normally at this time was not on it. Steve Leshinsky arranged to have a new sign made up, and we hung it on the station for the photo stop here. The station has since been restored. I haven't got any shots of it though in its restored state. Back to the bridges at Palmer's. And then at Lakeside, we met the pizza train, the ice cream train or something coming up out of Duluth, powered by one of the museum's two ex Mesabi SD-18s. Went back up in August 2009 for the NRHS convention, and we had two night photo sessions. at the museum. This is the first one with the Sioux Line F unit and the GP30. And Sioux Line 462 2719 was part of the scene. If you had asked me before I put this show together, have you ever done a charter with a 2719? I would have said, yeah, sure I have. To find out I haven't. What I did do though was during the NRHS convention, I chased the convention train from Duluth up to Two Harbors. And that's where I got pretty much all of my 2719 photos in service. Here you see the NRHS train coming up out of Duluth. And somewhere around Lakeside. Might be an unpopular opinion, but I think the front end of these Sioux Line engines, like this one here, a little bit ugly. I'm not sure why I think that. It's got the off-center headlight, but then again, Reading T1s that are like my favorites also have off-center headlights. So I don't know what it is. If it's the combination of the headlight and the tubing going up the front there, or what it is. They just seem odd to me. The big bridge at Palmer's. Coming up to Two Harbors. Here we see the photo line set up on the Mesabi Bridge over the North Shore Scenic. This now notice between the rails all those little taconite pellets. The line you see here got here early, and we gingerly walked out onto the bridge. It was kind of funny because a lot of latecomers, the run-and gunners, came squealing into the last minute, came running out onto the bridge, hit those taconite pellets, and away they went, falling all over the place. Just like little ball bearings. Anyhow, here's the shot we got off the bridge. And the train turning up at Two Harbors. And coming out of the Mesabi Yard, which by now is Canadian National, I believe. The configuration for the return trip put one of the Mesabi museum-owned Mesabi units behind the 2719. Back to Knife River, you see the station sign is not there for this trip. And coming through Lakeside on the outskirts of Duluth. Then our second night photo session was that night. Erie Mining Company F units and Mesabi SD18s. All owned by the museum. As well as this Duluth and Northern Minnesota steam locomotive. The smoke came from smoke bombs. The 14 is not an active locomotive, as the coat of dust probably indicates. Went back up in September 2011. Here we see the 2719 pulling the regular consist on the North Shore Scenic. A caboose, a boxcar, which I assume has the head end power for the coaches behind it. A Chicago Northwestern bi-level commuter car, and then a couple of heavyweights in the back there. This time around, we started up in Two Harbors with the Erie Mining F unit. And this Duluth South Shore and Atlantic Railroad RS1. Also on display in Two Harbors is this steam locomotive. We did some night shots with it. That's my friend Jay Lensner. He passed away earlier this year. Great guy. Ex-Milwaukee Railroader. He posed in the shot here for us, though. Then the next day we were off with the A and B F units, Erie Mining. This is at Knife River. And the cool thing about this trip was the museum had arranged for Canadian National, the Mesabi, to drop off a string of ore cars for the trip. And it was kind of cool. We got around on the passenger train behind the RS1. And we met the regular train with the 2719 at one point. But here we are with our Erie Mining F units and a string of ore cars. Really cool. I only got up to the Erie Mining once when it was in service. I only got a handful of shots. So this was kind of neat to get them running with the ore cars behind them. On the other end of the same train was the Sioux Line F unit. Once again, meeting the regular train, the 2719. Then here's our passenger train coming out of the yard at Two Harbors. And now we have the F unit on the south end of the train, the Sioux Line F unit, leading us back. That's that overhead is that Mesabi bridge that had all the taconite pellets on it you saw earlier. Back at Knife River, we got this shot here, parallel bridges. And then this shot here with kayakers who are kind of color matched to the RS1 with the reds and yellows going there. Shot you had to do quick. You had to get it with the kayakers out from under the bridge, but before they messed up the reflection down in the water. The next day, we took the museum's two Mesabi SD-18s out with the ore train. We rode in the caboose for this one here. Coming out of downtown Two Harbors. This is the view from the bay window in the caboose. Some locals came out to see the train. And there's my friend Jay riding in the caboose. Back to the Little Sucker River Bridge at Palmer's. I did have more success over the years chasing the Mesabi. I did get several ore trains, a lot of them with matched Mesabi power. But still, this was pretty cool to see this. Coming down through Lakeside. And then my final trip out there, or my most recent one anyhow, was in September 2019. We started off with a night photo in the museum's yard. The 2719, which was not under steam, was on the left. The Duluth in northern Minnesota 14, which we saw earlier, has been dusted off. But it's also not live. It's over on the far right. But in the middle is Duluth Mesabi and Iron Range 280, number 332. And that was under steam. And that was the reason for this trip here. Most of the steam you see here is not from any of those steam locomotives. It's from smoke bombs that we put underneath the 14. And then the Minnesota Steel Company tank engine was there. So we set off a smoke bomb behind it and lit it up.
Nice shot, Steve.
Thanks. Then we were on our excursion the next day, our charter, with the 332. This was supposed to be a trip with the ore jennies again, but somehow something got lost in the communication between the museum and Canadian National, and the ore jennies weren't delivered. So we went out with a freight train. pretty good day. By now I had a drone. So when we crossed over the Little Sucker River on one of the run-bys, I flew the drone for this shot here. Two eras of Mesabi power in one shot. And I think now we're on the return trip here. The weather kind of fell apart, but all in all, it was a pretty nice day. Because the work cars weren't delivered, they hastily repainted some, or took some freight cars that were sitting in the museum property that were just blank. They were painted but had no lettering on them. They hastily added some lettering to them, but then it rained overnight, and you can see that the first car with its fresh paint on its lettering kind of dripped over the course of the day. Although I guess still it was better than just a blank car. My attempt at a pan shot. The next day, we were supposed to have steam again, but the 332 developed problems on the return trip. So we went out the next day with the diesels, and we started off with the Sioux Line F unit leading a short passenger train. This spot here next to this pond was really nice. We did several run-bys and just a post shot here. Then we got to the Little Sucker River Bridge at Palmer's. They posed the train on the bridge. So once again, I could get my drone out and fly the drone for a few shots, such as this one here. And then a little bit higher up, it brought that barn into play in the background, which is kind of nice. This shot here that was really a tight shot, not a lot of room in the photo line. So I just sort of stood back and got the photo line shooting the train speeding by. And up at Two Harbors, once again with the drone. The Mesabi boat in the foreground is actually preserved on display. And that's the Mesabi ore dock at Two Harbors in the background. Getting ready to head back south. This is the bridge at Knife River. Here we have one of the SD-18s pulling the passenger train. This actually is prototypical.
Steve,
Yes.
on the shot before, on the top of the building, on the upper left, what is it? You can see ANCE, but what's it fully say? Do you know?
I believe it's actually a G, and it probably says Duluth and Iron Range,
Ah, thank you.
which was the railroad before it became the Duluth, Mesabi and Iron Range.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. This is actually kind of prototypical because the locomotive and both of the cars were owned by the Mesabi. And when they wanted to run a business train, the Mesabi itself actually would put this consist together and run it. So even though it's a museum train here, this is a consist you would have seen on business trains back in the day.
Nice shot, Steve.
Thanks. And then we met the pizza train or ice cream train or whatever it was, which had an RDC as one of the coaches at Lakeside. And that wrapped that up, and that wraps up my coverage of the Lake Superior Railroad Museum. But there's still more. One more thing. A couple more shots here. I found out that the Nike missile base, ex-Nike missile base, located just a few miles from here up in Swedesboro, New Jersey, which has been overgrown for years. you haven't been able to see a thing back in there for decades, but it's been cleared out. So I raced up there this morning and got some shots of the towers while they were still exposed. The good news is the towers are exposed for the first time in decades. The bad news is they're coming down next week for a warehouse. We have plenty of warehouses in South Jersey. Let me tell you, we have warehouses everywhere. We don't need more warehouses. But anyhow, these were the radar towers. They used to have spinning antennas on top. And there were about 18 or so of these bases surrounding Philadelphia and New York to detect any incoming rockets from Russia. And apparently there are Nike missiles on site here to intercept those. I do want to go back here probably tomorrow evening. I'll take the drone out and do some aerials. My drone hasn't been legal this year. It's an older drone and needed a remote ID put on it so that it transmits what it is to other aircraft. But I got the remote ID put on it, tested that today. It seems to be working. So I'm legal again to fly. So I'll probably head out with the drone tomorrow and go back up here again. But then next week they come down. Piece
And
of
which site again was that, Steve? Which particular one?
this is Swedesboro,
Gotcha.
located just above where 322 intersects the road to Rapalpo.
Gotcha.
Across from Wildwood. That wraps up tonight's show. Next program is September 18th. If things go to plan, between now and then, I have a couple of night photo sessions planned. I'm not doing one. I'm a paid participant in one at Danbury, Connecticut this weekend. And then I'm going to help run night photo sessions, 2 of them at Steamtown, Labor Day weekend. Tickets are on sale. And then, like I said, if things go well and there's no hurricanes, I also have a week in Florida planned between now and then. And that's going to be a combination of trains, lighthouses, and neon. So I'll sign this off for the YouTubers now. Next show, September 18th. I'll see everybody then. And for those of you watching live here, stand by and we'll take questions and comments and other stuff.